Everyone in Judge Judy's courtroom expected a routine case, until Ariana Vale, the billionaire's daughter, strutted in like consequences were optional. She rolled her eyes at the judge, mocked the plaintiff, and acted like the entire courtroom sat beneath her bank account. But when the photos dropped, and the video exposed her drunken rampage, her confidence cracked like glass. Judge Judy stripped away every lie, every layer of privilege, until Ariana finally broke, admitting the truth she'd buried for years. But the real shock came later, when Judge Judy revealed one piece of evidence Ariana didn't even know existed. And you will be shocked. Before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from? Don't forget the subscribe button. The courtroom felt different the moment Ariana Vale walked in, like the air tightened to make room for her ego. She moved with a kind of glittering certainty, the daughter of a billionaire who had grown up believing rooms bent around her. Even her posture advertised superiority, shoulders back, chin lifted, eyes bored, like the entire proceeding was beneath her. She flicked her hair once, then stared straight at Judge Judy with a look that belonged more at a nightclub than in a courtroom. When she laughed, sharp, metallic, dripping entitlement, the sound bounced off the wood-paneled walls like a taunt. A few audience members shifted in their seats, unsure whether they had just witnessed confidence or something closer to disrespect. Judge Judy did not respond. Not immediately. She sat with her hands folded, her gaze steady, letting the silence stretch so thin it almost hummed. The longer she stayed quiet, the more Ariana's smirk began to look like a test she should not have started. Near the plaintiff's table stood Lena Hartwell, small, fragile, in presence but not in purpose. She clutched her stack of papers with both hands, her fingers pressing into the edges. A soft cafe owner with tired eyes, she looked as if she had not slept in days. When Ariana entered earlier, Lena instinctively stepped back, giving space the way people do when thunder rolls in. Now she kept her gaze low, as though she feared making eye contact would pull her into Ariana's storm. The camera of the mind pans slowly across the courtroom, the murmur of the audience dying out, the bailiff's brow raised just enough to show concern. The clerk, pausing mid-typing as though waiting for the explosion that surely had to follow that laugh. Ariana leaned against her table, inspecting her manicure like this was a fashion show and not a dispute that could change someone else's life. Her leg bounced impatiently, the gold anklet around it catching the fluorescent lights every time she shifted. Only then, after the room had been pulled tight like a wire, did Judge Judy lift her eyes. It was subtle, controlled, but the shift in energy was instant, like the moment before lightning touches ground. Her stare moved from the file in front of her to Ariana, and the smirk faltered for half a beat. Not enough for Ariana to notice, enough for everyone else to. Lena swallowed hard. The air between the two women felt charged, one holding all the arrogance in the world, the other holding all the weight of what had been broken. When Judge Judy finally spoke, her voice was soft. Too soft. "Miss Vale," she said, "let us begin." Ariana's smirk returned, wider this time. Victory in her eyes before the battle had even started. But Judge Judy's gaze did not shift. It sharpened. Ariana rolled her eyes, bold, careless, dismissive, and Judge Judy leaned forward, ready to speak words that would change everything. Ariana's eye roll was still hanging in the air when Judge Judy leaned forward. The shift was microscopic, a tilt of the chin, the narrowing of her eyes. But it was enough to make the entire courtroom inhale at once. "Miss Vale," Judge Judy said, her voice calm but edged like glass, "you will not roll your eyes in my courtroom." The warning cut through the space with a precision that made even the bailiff straighten. Ariana froze, her smirk twitching as if unsure whether to stay or retreat. She blinked, then forced a sweet, artificial smile, the kind that belonged in magazine spreads, not under a judge's stare. "I apologize, Your Honor," she said, adding a breathy laugh at the end, as though the formality amused her. Judge Judy did not blink, she did not shift. She simply held Ariana's gaze until the last drop of arrogance in that laugh evaporated. "We are going to handle this case seriously," Judy said. "Do you understand me?" Ariana chuckled again, softer this time. "I mean, sure, but I really do not think this is, like, a big deal." The courtroom reacted, a few heads turning, someone exhaling sharply. Lena flinched as if the words themselves were heavy enough to bruise. She clutched her documents tighter, the papers trembling in her hands. Judge Judy's voice lowered. "You will speak respectfully, you will answer directly, and you will not trivialize what someone else has lost." Ariana shifted her weight from one foot to the other, the confidence on her face flickering like a candle fighting a draft. Yet she kept the posture of someone who had never truly faced consequence, not once. Judy turned her attention to Lena. "Miss Hartwell, please explain the nature of your claim." Lena stepped forward. Her voice was soft but steady, the kind that carried sincerity even when it wavered. "My cafe. I run it by myself. I had saved for years to afford the outdoor seating. It was the only way to increase business in summer." She paused, hands trembling. "And she destroyed it." The courtroom stayed still, only the faint scratch of a pen somewhere in the audience breaking the quiet. Ariana laughed again, too loud, too forced. "Destroyed? It was a couple of chairs. People exaggerate everything these days." Lena looked down, tears gathering at the edges of her eyes, not from drama, from exhaustion. Judge Judy turned sharply. "Miss Vale, you will not speak until I ask you to." The words struck Ariana like a cold gust. She pressed her lips together, irritation tightening her features, but this time she said nothing. The narrator's voice, calm and cinematic, flows through the space between them. Ariana Vale was not used to boundaries. She had never met a room she could not control, until this one. Judge Judy lifted a page from the file. "Lena claims you damaged her property. Before we move forward, I have one question for you, Miss Vale." Ariana lifted her chin, confident again, ready to perform. Judge Judy asked the question, and Ariana smiled like she was prepared to lie. Ariana inhaled slowly, the kind of breath people take before performing. Her smile sharpened into something rehearsed, polished, dangerous. The courtroom leaned in without meaning to. Everyone knew a lie was coming. "Well," Ariana began, placing one manicured hand on her hip, "the truth is, I was provoked." The words floated into the room like perfume, sweet on the surface, toxic underneath. Her voice softened as she pretended to be fragile, her eyes widening in crafted innocence. A few audience members exchanged glances. They recognized the performance of someone who had never been told no. Judge Judy tilted her head slightly, not impressed, not convinced, just waiting. "Go on," she said. Ariana stepped closer to her table, her bracelets clinking softly, a delicate sound that contrasted sharply with her growing arrogance. "I was walking past her cafe, minding my own business, when her staff started mocking me, laughing, whispering things." Lena's head jerked up. "That's not true," she whispered, voice cracking. But Ariana didn't stop. She pressed a hand to her chest dramatically, like she was the victim of a great injustice. "I felt threatened. I mean, imagine, people ganging up on you in public." She let the sentence linger, its falseness dripping into the stillness. Judge Judy watched her in silence, her face unreadable. It was the kind of silence that forced truth to sweat. Ariana, however, mistook it for approval. Her confidence grew. "I was overwhelmed," she continued. "They were hostile. I reacted instinctively. Maybe I bumped a chair, maybe a planter fell, but I never destroyed anything. It was an accident caused by them." Her emphasis on that last word sliced the air. Lena took a step forward, holding out her trembling papers. "Your Honor, please. None of that happened. We were closing for the night. No staff was even outside." Ariana scoffed loudly, cutting her off. "Oh, please! You are really going to pretend your workers are saints?" Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "Miss Vale, you will not interrupt again." Ariana shrugged, smirking, as though interruption itself were beneath consequences. The narrator's voice moves in softly, like a camera drifting closer. Ariana Vale liked constructing illusions. She liked building truths that fit her comfort, but illusions flicker when someone with real power stares too closely. Judge Judy lifted the file again, flipping through crisp pages. "Miss Hartwell, give your full statement." Lena held her breath before speaking. She was drunk. She knocked over every chair outside, screaming at us for not serving her after closing. She pushed the planter. She broke the heater. all while yelling that her father could erase us. A ripple of discomfort traveled across the gallery. Ariana laughed too quickly. She is exaggerating everything. The damage was tiny. Judge Judy didn't look at her. She reached slowly into the folder on her desk. Papers rustled like whispers. Photographs, glossy, undeniable, slid into her hand. Ariana's smirk flickered, just for a moment. A flicker only someone truly watching would catch. Judge Judy lifted the first photo, turning it so both parties could see. Broken tables, smashed planters, a heater bent at an unnatural angle. Even Ariana inhaled sharply. Judy's finger tapped one corner of the photo, the part that made Ariana's eyes widen, and she said, "Let us talk about this bracelet." Ariana did not move at first. Her bracelet, the one she swore she had never worn, gleamed from the corner of the photograph like a silent witness. For the first time, her confidence did not rise. It recoiled. Judge Judy held the photo between two fingers, steady as stone. The courtroom was silent, except for the faint hum of the overhead lights. Ariana's eyes darted between the image and her own wrist, as though trying to will the jewelry into disappearing. "Miss Vale," Judy said, her tone calm enough to be dangerous, "you told me you were not wearing this bracelet the night of the incident." Ariana forced a laugh, thin, brittle. I mean, I do not remember wearing it." She tugged back her sleeve, revealing her wrist as if presenting evidence of innocence. "I wear a lot of different jewelry. Maybe it is one that looks similar." Judy did not blink. "It is engraved with your initials." The courtroom let out a soft collective gasp. Even the bailiff shifted slightly, the weight of the moment settling in. Ariana's throat bobbed in a swallow she tried to hide. "Well, okay. Maybe I was wearing it earlier," she said, her voice cracking on the last word. "But that does not mean I did all of that. Someone else could have..." "Could have what?" Judy cut in, her voice sharpening. "Stolen your bracelet, gone on a rampage, and conveniently left it beside a planter you knocked over?" Ariana's facade faltered, the cracks spreading through her expression like fractures in glass. Her hands twitched at her sides, fingers curling and uncurling in restless panic. The narrator's voice slides in like a slow zoom. Ariana Vale had lived her entire life behind walls money built for her, but walls break the moment truth stops respecting them. Lena stood quietly, tears resting along her lashes. She did not gloat, she did not smile. She simply watched Ariana wrestle with a reality she could no longer control. I was upset that night," Ariana stammered. "A lot happened. People do things they regret, but I did not destroy her cafe." Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, hands clasped together. "Miss Hartwell, how much did this damage cost you?" Lena spoke softly. "Thousands. I spent all my savings repairing it." Ariana's eyes flicked toward Lena, not with empathy, but with fear. Fear of the number, fear of consequence, fear of losing the illusion she'd crafted so carefully. Judy tapped the photo again. "This bracelet places you at the scene. It contradicts your story." Ariana's voice dropped to a whisper. I was drunk. I do not remember everything." "Ah," Judy said, leaning forward. "Now we are getting closer to the truth." Ariana looked down, her lashes trembling. The arrogance had not disappeared. It was simply drowning, pulled under by the rising tide of evidence. Judy set the photo down with deliberate precision. "Miss Vale, you cannot outrun your own reflection, not in this courtroom." The silence that followed felt like gravity. Ariana's jaw clenched. Her eyes filled with the heat of someone realizing their lies could no longer hold. Judge Judy picked up the file again, her voice low and controlled. "Then explain," she said, sliding the photo forward, "why your bracelet was found there." And every eye in the room turned to Ariana, waiting for the lie that would finally break her. Ariana opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The bracelet, gleaming in the photo, seemed to stare back at her like its own accusation. And for the first time, her silence was louder than her arrogance. Ariana began, swallowing hard. Her voice came out thin, strained, nothing like the smooth confidence she had walked in with. "I must have dropped it earlier that day." Judge Judy raised an eyebrow, just one, but the tiny motion was enough to send a ripple of tension across the courtroom. "Earlier?" she repeated. Ariana nodded quickly, too quickly. Yes, I was at the cafe earlier that afternoon. I could have lost it then. Anyone could have found it. Anyone could have put it there. The courtroom reacted. A murmur, a shifting of chairs, an almost audible disbelief sweeping the room. The narrator's voice glided through the moment like a camera pan. Her lie wasn't just weak. It was desperate, the kind of excuse people make when the ground beneath them starts to crack. Judge Judy clasped her hands together. Miss Vale, you said previously that you had never been near this cafe before the night in question. The color drained from Ariana's face. Well, I meant I was not a regular, but I might have walked by. Sometime. Maybe. Her words tangled around themselves, falling apart mid-air. Lena closed her eyes, exhaling softly, as though watching her truth finally surface after days of drowning. Ariana snapped toward her. Do not act like you know what I did or did not do, she said, her tone trembling with a mix of anger and panic. You are making me look like some kind of monster, Judge Judy cut in, her voice steady, unshakable. Nobody is making you look like anything. Your actions and your lies are doing that work on their own. Ariana's lips pressed into a tight line. Her eyes began darting around, searching for escape routes that did not exist. Judy leaned back. Let us bring more clarity into this. She glanced toward the bailiff. Please bring in the video evidence Miss Hartwell submitted. Ariana's shoulders jerked. Video? The fear in her voice cracked through whatever composure she had left. Yes, Judge Judy said calmly. A recording from the night in question. Ariana's fingers tightened around the edge of her table, knuckles whitening as though she might hold on to the furniture the way she could no longer hold on to her story. The bailiff approached the monitor, inserting a flash drive. The lights dimmed slightly as the screen flickered on. Ariana's chest rose and fell rapidly, each breath shallow and uneven. The video loaded, shaky footage, streetlights casting harsh glow, figures moving, laughter, loud, chaotic. A group stumbling toward the cafe's outdoor seating. Ariana leaned forward slowly, eyes widening as her own voice, slurred, mocking, unmistakable, filled the courtroom. Move these ugly chairs. Who cares? My dad could buy this whole block. Her friends cheered. Then came the crash, a table slamming against concrete, a planter toppling. A heater bending under impact. The sound echoed through the courtroom like truth hitting bone. Ariana covered her mouth with her hand. Turn it off, she whispered. Turn it off. Judge Judy did not move. She watched Ariana instead of the screen, watching the moment entitlement turned into fear. The video ended on Ariana's laughter, sharp, uncontrolled, careless. Silence followed, heavy, final. Ariana lowered her hand, her voice barely audible. That video. It does not show everything, she whispered, and for the first time, there was no smirk left to hide behind. The last frame of the video still flickered on the screen when the light steadied. No one moved. Ariana Vale stood frozen, as if the version of herself on that screen had stepped out of her body and slapped the truth across her face. The courtroom existed in a strange kind of silence, not empty, not calm, but heavy, the kind of silence that follows impact. Ariana's chest rose in short, uneven breaths. Her hands hovered near her mouth, trembling with the realization that her own voice, her own laughter, her own destruction had become evidence she could not outrun. Judge Judy folded her hands. Miss Vale, she said quietly, this is you, your words, your actions. Ariana shook her head, but the motion was weak, unconvincing. That video, someone edited it, cut it, twisted it. You do not see what happened before. Judy didn't entertain the deflection. Are you suggesting the footage is fabricated? I am saying it is not the whole story, Ariana snapped, her voice cracking around the edges. She turned to the audience, seeking sympathy where none existed. You all do not know what my night was like. Miss Vale, Judge Judy interrupted, we do not judge nights. We judge actions. Ariana closed her eyes, jaw tightening. Her carefully constructed facade, the glamorous confidence she had worn since walking in, was unraveling strand by strand. Lena watched her with a mixture of fear and compassion. She didn't want Ariana destroyed. She only wanted acknowledgement, truth, respect. But Ariana wasn't ready for truth. Not yet. You do not understand, Ariana whispered. Everything was already a mess. I was upset. My friends were being stupid. I did not mean to break anything. Judy leaned forward. Upset is not an excuse to cause thousands of dollars of damage. I did not. Ariana stopped mid-shout, catching herself. For a moment, she looked like a child who had finally realized the tantrum wouldn't work. Her shoulders sagged, her voice softened. I did not think it mattered. I thought someone would clean it up. The narrator's voice pulls the camera closer. There it was, the root of her entitlement, not malice, indifference, the belief that consequences were tasks assigned to other people. Lena's voice broke the silence. You nearly ruined me, she whispered. That cafe is my life. I worked 12 years to build it. Ariana blinked, her stare locking onto Lena for the first time without arrogance. Something flickered, discomfort, guilt, or maybe the beginning of self-awareness. Judge Judy let the moment stretch, letting it breathe. You see the effect of your choices, she said. Now, the question is whether you will continue lying or whether you will finally take responsibility. Ariana swallowed hard. Her eyes dropped to the floor. The camera lingers on her trembling hands, the way her manicured fingers press against her palm as if trying to anchor herself. Then, Judy tapped the desk lightly. Miss Vale, look at me. Ariana forced her eyes upward. Because, Judge Judy said, her voice sharp enough to split the silence, the next piece of evidence will make lying impossible. Ariana's breath caught. Another video, another witness, something worse? Her fear said everything. Ariana stood stiff, her breath shallow, her eyes locked on Judge Judy as if bracing for impact. Everyone could feel it. Another truth was waiting behind that bench, and Ariana Vale had run out of places to hide. Miss Vale, Judge Judy said, before I show anything else, I want to give you an opportunity. The words should have sounded merciful. They didn't. They sounded like a door creaking open on a room Ariana never wanted anyone to look inside. Ariana lifted her chin, but the gesture lacked its usual shine. Her voice wobbled. Opportunity for what? To tell the truth, Judy replied. All of it. Ariana's jaw tightened. I have told the truth. Judy didn't blink. You have told a version. Now tell the real one. Ariana exhaled sharply, her fingers digging into the edge of her table. Fine, she said. I was upset that night. People get upset. It happens. Lena flinched. The courtroom watched Ariana like a storm cloud forming. Unpredictable, dangerous, but inevitable. I was already having a terrible day, Ariana continued. My phone died. My driver was late. I had an argument with one of my friends. Judy raised a hand. None of that explains destroying someone's property. Try again. Ariana's eyes flashed with irritation, fear, and pride battling for control. I said I was upset. And I heard you, Judy replied, eyes narrowing. But upset doesn't make planters fly across a sidewalk. Ariana looked away, but the narrator's voice catches the micro-movements, her shoulders rising too fast, her breath slipping uneven, her eyes blinking in rapid bursts, the body exposing what the mouth refused to. Lena stepped forward cautiously. Your Honor, may I say something? Judy nodded. Lena faced Ariana, her voice gentle but firm. You weren't just upset. You were angry. You were yelling at us because we wouldn't serve you. You were shouting about how your father owned half the city. Ariana's head whipped toward her. I did not say that, but she had. The video showed it. The walls of the cafe had heard it. The streetlights had witnessed it. Lena's eyes watered, not from anger, from exhaustion. You scared us. You said we were nobody. You said our work didn't matter. Ariana shook her head violently, as if shaking off the memory itself. I was drunk. I did not mean... That is the problem, Lena whispered. You didn't mean it because you didn't think it mattered. Judy watched the exchange with surgical attention. Miss Vale, the video showed your actions. Miss Hartwell just described your words. You have contradicted yourself several times today. Now, I'm asking again, what actually happened that night? Ariana's breathing hitched. Her eyes glistened. For a second, she looked almost human. Not the polished heiress, not the performer, but a young woman cracking under the weight of a truth she didn't want to face. She started. Her voice collapsed. Her shoulders followed. The courtroom froze, watching her unravel, as though the truth was a tide pulling her under. Judy leaned in. Miss Vale? Ariana blinked rapidly, fighting tears she refused to let fall. "There is still something you are not telling the truth about," Judge Judy said, her voice quiet but cutting. And Ariana's face drained of color, because she knew exactly what the judge meant. Ariana's color drained so fast, it looked like the truth had pulled it out of her. Judge Judy hadn't raised her voice, hadn't even shifted in her chair, but something in the room had already turned against Ariana Vale. Judge Judy folded her hands with deliberate precision. "Miss Vale," she said, "your story has changed 3 times today. That tells me you're not confused. You are avoiding." Ariana's lips parted, but no words came out. Lena watched with cautious hope, fear still tucked behind her eyes. She wasn't here to see Ariana fall. She was here to finally be seen. Judy continued, "There is a reason your version does not match the video, the photographs, or the plaintiff's statement." She paused, letting the weight of each contradiction land like steady blows. "And I am going to show you why." Ariana's breath hitched. "What do you mean, show me?" Judy nodded toward the bailiff. "Please bring in the cafe's security footage." Ariana's whole body jerked. "Wait, what footage?" "Footage from inside and just outside Miss Hartwell's cafe," Judy said. "She requested it from the building manager after filing her claim. I reviewed it this morning." The courtroom shifted. A low murmur swept across the gallery, softer than before, but heavier, like the rumble before thunder. Ariana's voice climbed a pitch. "You watched it, without me seeing it first?" Judy's stare cut straight through her. "This is a courtroom, not a personal screening room." The bailiff placed a second flash drive into the monitor. The screen lit up with a clearer, sharper image than the shaky phone video. Bright, unedited, undeniable. Ariana stood perfectly still, too still. The narrator steps in, soft, tense. Here it was. The moment privilege stopped being armor and became spotlight. The footage began. Ariana storming into frame, not pushed, not provoked. Her friends trailing behind, filming her, laughing. Ariana pointing at the cafe's windows, shouting, "I could buy this whole block if I wanted." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Some people sat back, others leaned forward, stunned by the clarity of her words. Ariana shook her head violently. No, that's not how it happened. Judy raised a hand. "We are not done." The footage continued. Ariana knocking over the first chair, her friend saying, "Ariana, stop!" while laughing at the spectacle. Ariana slamming a planter against the wall, yelling, "Tell your boss she should be grateful anyone even comes here." Lena covered her mouth at hearing the line again, this time loud enough for the whole room. Ariana's eyes glistened. Her throat worked in a hard swallow. Her kingdom was shrinking by the second. When the final clip showed Ariana kicking over the heater with a vicious snap of her leg, the courtroom fell into stunned silence. Judge Judy let the moment settle fully before she spoke. "Miss Vale," she said, her voice low and unwavering, "this was not weakness. This was not confusion. This was not drunken clumsiness." Ariana stared down at the table, her breath shuddering. "This," Judy continued, "was a pattern, entitlement, aggression, and an abuse of the privilege your family name affords you." Ariana closed her eyes. Her hands trembled. Her facade was broken, truly broken. Judge Judy leaned forward, voice slow and surgical. "Did your father tell you to behave this way?" she asked, "or did you assume you could, because no one ever stopped you?" Ariana inhaled sharply, and the room held its breath with her. Ariana did not answer. Judge Judy's question hovered in the air like a blade suspended by a thread, and for the first time, the billionaire's daughter looked genuinely afraid of the silence that followed her. Her eyes darted toward the audience, then toward Lena, then toward the floor. Anywhere but the judge. Her breath faltered, shaky and uneven, as though her body finally realized the performance was over. "My father did not tell me to do anything," Ariana whispered. The sentence was barely audible, but in the silence of that courtroom, it echoed like a confession shouted through a megaphone. Judy nodded once, subtle, firm. "So this behavior came from you?" Ariana winced. The truth stung in a way she didn't know truth could sting. "You do not understand what it is like being me," she said, voice trembling. "People expect things from me. My family expects things from me. I was under pressure." Lena lowered her eyes. To her, Ariana's pressure was a distant planet, too far from the world where a week's worth of business losses meant choosing between rent and food. Pressure, Judy repeated slowly, does not justify destruction. Ariana's temper flared for a split second, panic wrapped in anger. You all think I'm some villain. I'm not. I'm trying. She stopped mid-sentence, voice cracking. The room watched her in stunned silence. Even the bailiff, who rarely allowed emotion to cross his features, softened slightly. The narrator's voice slides in, low and reflective. Truth does not always arrive like a hammer. Sometimes it slips quietly into the cracks of a person who has spent years avoiding mirrors. Ariana's face twisted, not with arrogance, but with something raw, something almost childlike. You do not know how hard it is, she said, her voice barely holding shape. Everywhere I go, everything I do, it is never enough for my father, not good enough, not perfect enough. I am always the problem. Her words wavered, then fell apart entirely. So, yes, I acted out. I lashed out. I wanted to feel like I mattered. The gallery shifted. A few people blinked, surprised by the emotion spilling from someone who had walked in unbreakable. Lena lifted her head, her own expression caught between empathy and the memory of what was lost. Ariana wiped under one eye, then stopped herself, surprised by the dampness on her finger. Judy studied her with the calm intensity of someone who had seen 100 breakdowns, but knew this one came from deeper wounds. Miss Vale, she said gently but firmly, wanting to matter does not give you permission to harm others. Ariana nodded slowly, shame tightening her shoulders. I know. And blame, Judy continued, will not save you here. Not your father, not your friends, not the night, not the alcohol. All that is left is you. Ariana swallowed hard. I never wanted to hurt her. Lena's voice broke softly. But you did. Ariana closed her eyes, tears pushing through the cracks she could no longer hide. Judge Judy let the silence breathe, letting the truth settle into Ariana like a weight she finally stopped trying to outrun. Then Judy leaned in, her voice quiet but cutting. Tell me, Miss Vale, what is it that you are actually afraid of? Ariana's eyes snapped open, and her fear was unmistakable. Ariana's fear did not flare outward like her anger had. It collapsed inward, folding her posture, dimming her eyes. For the first time, the courtroom saw not the billionaire's daughter, but the frightened young woman buried underneath the performance. Judge Judy's question echoed through the room. What is it that you are actually afraid of? Ariana inhaled sharply, as if the air itself hurt to pull in. Her gaze drifted, aimless, searching, for a version of herself she still recognized. Her fingers twisted in the fabric of her sleeve. Her shoulders curled in, slowly losing the sharpness of entitlement and beginning to reveal the softness of someone who didn't know how to be seen without armor. Ariana started, then stopped. Her jaw tensed. She tried again. I do not know. Judy's voice softened, not with pity, but with the gravity of someone guiding a truth to the surface. I think you do. Ariana's eyes shifted toward Lena, and for the first time, there was no hostility, only exhaustion. Everyone wants something from me, she whispered. My father wants me to be perfect. My friends want me to be exciting. The world expects me to be this image, this thing. She rubbed her temples, her breathing uneven. And when I fail, it becomes a headline, a joke, an embarrassment. I'm constantly trying to hold everything together. Lena's expression softened despite herself. The narrator's voice flickered like a camera zooming in. The courtroom had watched her arrogance. Now, it watched the cost of it. Ariana continued, voice cracking at the edges. I get angry when I feel powerless. I lash out. I know it is wrong. I know it hurts people. But in the moment, it feels like the only time anyone actually listens to me. Her words hung in the air, raw, vulnerable, unfamiliar. Judge Judy leaned forward, elbows resting gently on the desk. Anger is not power, Miss Vale. It is fear wearing a louder costume. Ariana's lips quivered. I was afraid that night, afraid of losing everything important to me, afraid of being seen as a failure. Again, I took it out on someone who did not deserve it. The room fell still. Not judgmental, not cruel, just still, in the way people become when they witness someone confronting themselves for the first time. Lena's voice trembled gently. "Why did you yell at us? Why say those things?" Ariana swallowed, her face breaking into the first honest expression she'd worn all day. "Because I thought, if I acted bigger, I would not feel so small." A sentence so quiet, it barely left her lips, but it hit the room like thunder. Judge Judy exhaled once, deeply, knowingly. "Now we are closer to the truth." Ariana nodded, wiping her cheek with the back of her hand. Her mascara had smeared slightly, a visual reminder of every crack forming beneath her carefully built exterior. But then Judy's tone shifted, subtle but firm, steering the moment from empathy back into accountability. "Miss Vale," she said, "fear explains behavior. It does not excuse it." Ariana's eyes lifted, glossy but steadying. And that steadiness, that subtle reclaiming of control, was what Judy had been waiting for. She tapped the file lightly. "There's still one more truth you have not confronted." Ariana froze again. Her fingers stopped moving. Her breath stopped halfway. Judge Judy held Ariana's gaze. "Tell us what truly happened after your father called you that night." Ariana's eyes widened, because that was the wound she had never meant to let anyone see. Ariana's breath caught so sharply it sounded like a gasp strangled halfway. Judge Judy's question hadn't just struck a nerve. It had ripped open the one wound Ariana Vale had spent her entire life stitching shut. The courtroom waited, suspended in a silence so fragile it felt like a single word could shatter it. Ariana's eyes glistened as she stared at Judge Judy, the edges of her composure dissolving faster than she could gather them. How do you know about that?" she whispered. Judge Judy didn't soften. "Because your phone records were included in the evidence you submitted. There was a call from your father roughly an hour before the incident." Ariana blinked, each blink slower than the last, like her body was trying to protect her from remembering. "I didn't think it mattered," she murmured. "It matters," Judy replied gently, "because you keep circling the truth like it's something you're afraid to touch." Ariana exhaled, the sound shaky, fragile. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers together until her knuckles turned white. When she finally spoke, her voice barely made it past her throat. "He said I embarrassed him." The words seemed to pull the entire room forward. Ariana swallowed, her jaw trembling. "There was an article that came out earlier that day. Some stupid gossip thing about me getting into an argument with a friend at a party." She let out a broken laugh. "He didn't even ask what happened. He just told me I made him look weak, that I was an embarrassment to the family." She paused, trying and failing to blink back the tears rising too fast. "He said he was done protecting me, that maybe I needed to fall on my face to learn something." Lena's hand lifted slightly, instinctively, as if she wanted to comfort her but didn't know if she should. The narrator's voice flows in quietly. "This was not the roar of privilege. This was the echo of abandonment," Ariana continued, voice trembling. "I tried to explain. I tried to apologize, but he hung up on me." Her breath hitched, and something inside me just snapped. Her eyes drifted unfocused, seeing something none of them could. I felt so small, so pathetic, like I was disappearing. And I didn't want to feel that way anymore. She covered her face with one shaking hand, but her next words came through anyway, raw and unguarded. "So I acted big, loud, reckless. I walked past that cafe and," her voice cracked, "I needed to feel powerful again, just for 5 minutes, just long enough to feel like I existed." The courtroom held its breath, a shared ache settling between the benches. Judge Judy let the moment sit, not to shame her, but because truth needed silence to settle into bone. "Miss Vale," Judy said finally, "hurting others is not a cure for being hurt." Ariana nodded slowly, tears rolling freely now. "I know." Her voice softened to a confession. "But that night, I didn't." Judy's gaze sharpened. "And now you do?" Ariana looked up, eyes swollen, voice steadying. "Yes, I do." But Judy didn't let her off the hook. "Then there's one more thing," she said, her tone dipping into something heavier. Something you still haven't said out loud. She tapped the file without looking down. Something you've been dodging since the moment you walked in here. Ariana's breath stopped completely. Judge Judy leaned forward. Tell this courtroom, she said, the real reason you believed you could behave that way. Why you thought consequences would never apply to you. Ariana's eyes widened. Because this was the truth that would change everything. Ariana didn't answer right away. Her lips parted, but no sound followed. Only a tremor, subtle but unmistakable. The courtroom waited, watching the last pieces of her arrogance crumble like ash slipping through her fingers. Judge Judy's question hovered in the air. Heavy and precise. Why did you believe consequences would never apply to you? Ariana didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move. For a moment she looked like she might try to run, if only there were anywhere left in her own skin to escape to. Then her chin dropped, her posture folding inward as if the truth itself weighed too much for her spine to hold upright. Because, she whispered, I've never really had any. The sentence landed with a dull, resonant thud. A truth too simple and too painful to hide behind excuses. A truth that filled every empty space the lies had left behind. Ariana's voice broke as she continued, softer than the buzzing lights above them. Every time I messed up, someone fixed it. My father threw money at the problem. My mother smiled it away. My friends joked about it like I was some chaotic little fire they liked watching burn. She wiped her cheek, her fingers stuttering across skin damp with tears. And I learned that if I acted loud enough, if I acted untouchable, the world would treat me that way. Lena stared at her, not with triumph, but with something gentler, something human. The narrator's voice floats in like a slow camera push. This wasn't the flame of arrogance anymore. It was the smoke that follows when a fire finally dies. Ariana turned toward Lena, her voice raw. I don't hate you. I never did. I don't even know you. I was just angry. I was humiliated. I wanted someone else to hurt, so I didn't feel alone in it. Lena's breath trembled, her eyes glistening. She clutched her hands together, grounding herself in compassion she didn't expect to feel. Judge Judy watched them both with the stillness of someone who understood the fragile moment unfolding in front of her. She didn't interrupt, didn't guide, didn't push. She let Ariana unravel, because sometimes unraveling is the only way left to start again. Ariana's shoulders shook now, not with anger, but with something deeper. I've spent my whole life thinking the rules don't apply to me because everyone around me acted like they didn't. Her voice cracked entirely. But they should have. I should have been told no. I should have been held accountable before I hurt anyone. She pressed her palms against her eyes, the way children do when they're overwhelmed. I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your business, Lena. I didn't mean to scare anyone. The silence that followed was intense. It was tender. Even in its heaviness, Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, soft but steady. Miss Vale, remorse means nothing without accountability. You understand that? Ariana nodded, slowly but genuinely. I do. I understand now. Judy's expression shifted, tightening, not unkindly, but with the seriousness of a surgeon preparing for the next cut. Good, she said, because understanding is just the beginning. Ariana swallowed, bracing herself. Judge Judy closed the file gently, as though marking the end of a chapter. Now, she said, her voice calm and decisive, we must discuss consequences. Ariana straightened, because this time, she knew she couldn't run from them. The phrase, we must discuss consequences, landed like a final gavel strike long before Judge Judy's hand ever touched wood. Ariana Vale didn't flinch. She simply exhaled, a slow, resigned breath that carried the weight of someone bracing for an impact she finally believed she deserved. Judge Judy opened the file again, her movements precise, almost surgical. Miss Vale, she began, the damage to Miss Hartwell's cafe was not minor. It was extensive. She lifted the first photo, then the second, each one sliding across the bench with a cold whisper of glossy truth. Ariana stared at the images, the shattered planters, the broken heater, the overturned tables. But this time, there was no denial left in her expression, only quiet, aching acknowledgement. Judy continued, her tone level but firm. The outdoor seating area cost approximately $4,600 to repair. Additional losses from business closure amounted to another $1,800. Lena's eyes lowered, almost apologetic for needing to voice her losses. Ariana blinked slowly. I didn't realize it was that much. That, Judy said sharply, is exactly the problem. You didn't think. You didn't consider the impact. You acted, Miss Vale. And now comes the part you've been shielded from your entire life. The aftermath. Ariana's throat worked in a quiet swallow. I understand, she whispered. Judge Judy studied her, the slumped shoulders, the trembling fingers, the hard-earned sincerity finally replacing the brittle gloss of entitlement. I believe, she said slowly, that you are beginning to. The narrator's voice flows in like a steady tracking shot. Consequences were no longer abstract concepts floating in her father's world. They were numbers, they were photos, they were faces, one of them belonging to the woman she had hurt. Lena stepped forward slightly. Your Honor, I don't want to ruin her life. I only want to be made whole. I want her to understand what she did. Ariana's eyes lifted, not defensively, not arrogantly, but with gratitude that looked painful in its sincerity. I do understand, Ariana murmured, and I'm sorry, truly. Judge Judy raised a hand, not to stop her, but to frame the moment. Miss Hartwell's request is reasonable, and it aligns with the purpose of this courtroom. She folded her hands. Therefore, Miss Vale, you will pay full financial restitution to Miss Hartwell for all damages and business losses. Ariana nodded immediately. Yes, of course, I will. No argument, no deflection, just acceptance. But Judy was not finished. And, she said, her tone deepening, given the nature of your behavior, financial accountability alone is insufficient. Writing a check does not teach humility. Ariana stiffened, not in resistance, but in nervous expectation. Judy paused, letting the moment breathe. You must learn to connect your actions to the people they hurt. Ariana's fingers curled around the table's edge. What does that mean? The judge's answer was calm, controlled, and utterly final. In addition to restitution, Judge Judy said, I will impose one more requirement, one that money cannot fulfill. Ariana inhaled sharply, because consequences were no longer numbers. They were personal, and they were coming. Ariana's breath stalled in her chest. Money she understood, money she could wield. But this unnamed consequence Judge Judy was preparing to deliver, felt like stepping into a world where her last shield no longer mattered. Judge Judy folded her hands, her expression steady but carrying the weight of intention. Miss Vale, she said, you have lived in a world where money solves everything, but justice, real justice, requires something more. Ariana tensed, bracing herself. Judy continued, Before I announce the full verdict, I want you to do something most people take for granted. She paused, letting Ariana feel the gravity of the moment. I want you to apologize to Miss Hartwell, not with excuses, not with image, not with fear, with sincerity. Ariana blinked. Just once, but the single tear that slid down her cheek after told the courtroom everything. Lena froze, hands pressed together, shoulders lifting as if the request alone felt heavier than money ever could. Ariana's steps toward her were small, unsteady. Her heels clicked against the courtroom floor in quiet, trembling rhythm. The camera of the mind follows her close, tracking the soft collapse of privilege into humility. She stopped a few feet from Lena. Her voice came out almost silent. I'm sorry. Lena stayed still. Ariana tried again, breath trembling. I'm not saying it because the judge told me to. I'm saying it because I really mean it. I hurt you. I damaged something you worked so hard to build. And I did it without thinking about you at all. Lena's lips parted, just slightly. Ariana swallowed, her voice breaking. You didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve to feel small because I felt small. And I'm so sorry for every minute you had to clean up the mess I made, both the physical one and the emotional one. The words came from somewhere deeper than fear, from the aching place where truth finally lived. Lena's eyes filled, but she did not cry. She stepped closer, her voice gentle. I accept your apology, and I hope you learn from it. Ariana nodded, blinking hard. I will. Judge Judy watched silently, the moment unfolding exactly as it needed to. Not dramatic, not performative, human. When Ariana returned to her table, she no longer walked like the girl who first entered this courtroom, glittering with entitlement. She walked like someone who finally understood how heavy her own actions were. Judge Judy straightened, ready now, finally, to deliver what the entire day had been leading toward. The courtroom held its breath. Now, Judge Judy said, lifting her gavel, hear my final decision. Ariana exhaled shakily, because the lesson money couldn't buy was only the beginning. Judge Judy held her gavel aloft, the polished wood catching the courtroom lights. Ariana stood motionless, no smirk, no armor, no trace of the person who had swaggered into the room hours earlier. For the first time, she wasn't waiting to win. She was waiting to learn. Miss Vale, Judge Judy began, lowering the gavel but keeping her voice firm. Your actions caused harm, financial loss, and emotional distress to Miss Hartwell, and the court cannot ignore that. Ariana nodded once, small, steady. I understand, Your Honor. Good, Judy said, because understanding is the doorway to change. The judge shifted her attention to Lena, whose eyes shimmered with a quiet mixture of relief and exhaustion. Miss Hartwell, you will receive full restitution for all damages, $6,400 in total, paid within 30 days. Lena nodded gratefully, her hands pressing over her chest. Ariana whispered, I'll pay it. Immediately. But Judy wasn't finished. However, she continued, turning her gaze back to Ariana, a check does not teach accountability. It simply closes a bill. She leaned forward. Your behavior was not just destructive. It was dismissive, entitled, and disrespectful to someone who worked hard for what she has. Ariana absorbed every word without looking away. Therefore, Judge Judy said, in addition to restitution, you are ordered to complete 50 hours of community service at small, locally owned businesses. Not as punishment, but as perspective. Ariana blinked, surprised, but not resistant. Judy continued, her tone softer now, but no less resolute. You will witness what it takes to build something from the ground up, to show up every morning and create a thing the world depends on, even when the world doesn't notice. Ariana nodded again, her voice quiet. I will. I want to. Lena swallowed hard. Your Honor. Thank you. Judge Judy offered her a rare, delicate smile. You deserve fairness, Miss Hartwell, and Miss Vale deserves the chance to learn. The narrator's voice glides in like a slow fade-out shot. Justice wasn't roaring today. It wasn't slamming fists or shouting truths. It was steady, measured, balanced, the kind that doesn't just punish, but transforms. Ariana lifted her eyes toward Judge Judy. I really am sorry, she said again, but this time without breaking, without hiding, without trembling. A statement, not a plea. Judy studied her with a long, quiet look. Not judgmental, not forgiving, simply reflective, like someone seeing the silhouette of who a person might become. You have an opportunity now, she said. Make something better of it, and of yourself. Ariana breathed out slowly, an exhale that sounded like the first inhale of a new life. I will, Your Honor. Judge Judy lifted her gavel one final time. This court is adjourned. The sound echoed through the small courtroom, sharp and final. Ariana didn't rush out. She didn't hide. She approached Lena instead, offering a final gentle handshake, a gesture that, hours earlier, she wouldn't have believed herself capable of. Lena took it. The exchange was quiet, simple, human. As Ariana walked out, her steps were no longer the loud clack of entitlement, but the soft, steady rhythm of someone learning how to move through the world without crashing into it. And the narrator closes the final shot. In the end, arrogance had met truth, and truth, spoken softly, had changed her more than power ever could.